They told you it was just a dog. But what if it wasn't? What if that quiet stare, that unexplainable moment, that impossible instinct, wasn't a fluke, but a sign? For thousands of years, hidden within ancient Egyptian texts, passed down through whispers and symbols, a prophecy from Thoth, the god of wisdom, spoke of a time when animals would awaken, not as servants to mankind, but as guides sent to help us remember what we've forgotten. That time, it seems, is now. Dogs are showing signs, subtle at first, then undeniable, that they were never just pets. They were guardians in disguise, sentinels of a shift, bridges between the worlds. If you've ever looked into your dog's eyes and felt like someone was staring back, someone aware, you're not imagining it, you're remembering it. Because the truth is, the prophecy is already happening. And the one you thought needed you may have been here to help you awaken all along. Long before history was written in ink, it was carved into stone and whispered into the stars. Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, was no myth to the initiates. He was the architect of thought, the keeper of the hidden records, the one who encoded the truths humanity wasn't ready to face. His teachings were preserved in fragments, veiled in riddles, scattered across sacred temples and occult manuscripts. And buried within those fragments was a prophecy so extraordinary, so wildly unthinkable, that even those who claimed to study Thoth dismissed it. A time would come when dogs, yes, dogs, would emerge not as domesticated animals, but as awakened guardians of a forgotten world. Thoth spoke of an age where Earth would shift, energetically, spiritually, a time when chaos would rise, truth would be buried, and humanity would drift far from its source. But in that darkness, the light would return through the most loyal, overlooked companions of all. These animals, he wrote, would become vessels, living conduits of divine intelligence, creatures of fur and flesh, yes, but beyond that, energy beings cloaked in simplicity. Dogs, he foretold, would guide us back, not through words, but through vibration, through presence, through something modern science still doesn't have the language to define. We were taught that dogs evolved from wolves, that they were tamed, trained, domesticated. But what if we got it backwards? What if they weren't brought into our homes so we could care for them, but so they could care for us? What if the bond was never biological, but spiritual? What if, in choosing to live beside us, dogs weren't submitting, but volunteering? The prophecy says that in this time of planetary shift, dogs would begin to reveal new layers of awareness. And if you've been paying attention, you've already seen it. Dogs, knowing when their human is sick before symptoms arise, barking frantically seconds before earthquakes, refusing to leave the side of someone in emotional collapse, waiting by the door minutes before their owner's return. No schedule, no signals, just knowing. Mainstream science chalks it up to coincidence or clever pattern recognition. But there's a growing field of researchers, healers, and energetically sensitive people who know better. They've seen it, lived it, measured it. Something deeper is happening. Dogs aren't reacting to our emotions, they're absorbing them, transmuting them, balancing them. They're tuning into frequencies we no longer hear, seeing shifts in the energy field that we're blind to. And they're doing it willingly, almost instinctively, as if they were sent here for this exact purpose. And here's the part they won't tell you publicly, at least not yet. Because some things are too sensitive to share openly. That's why we created Insights Academy, a free newsletter where we dive deeper into hidden knowledge that platforms like this won't touch. If you join now, you'll also receive a free ebook copy of the Kybalion, but only for a limited time. Just hit the link in the description and enter your email before it disappears. Because there are secrets buried in ancient texts that make far more sense now than they did 20 years ago. When Thoth described dogs as guardians of the in-between, he wasn't speaking in metaphor. He meant it literally. He foresaw a time when humanity's disconnection from source would leave us vulnerable, fragmented, and he knew we would need help remembering. Not from machines, not from leaders, but from companions who never forgot what we are. If you've ever watched your dog stare into the distance, not distracted, but focused, locked in, ask yourself, what are they seeing that you cannot? If they wake you up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, could it be that they're responding to more than noise? These moments, once brushed off as quirky pet behavior, are beginning to look more like intelligence, just not the kind we were trained to recognize. Thoth's prophecy is unfolding, not in temples or laboratories, but in living rooms, backyards, shelters, and quiet walks under the stars. The awakening of the guardians isn't coming. It's already here. You're living in it. And your dog? They've been waiting for you to notice. They never barked for no reason. They never stared at walls without cause. And when they refused to leave your side during moments you didn't even know were dangerous, they weren't being clingy. They were doing exactly what they came here to do. The ancient Egyptians called them Anubis's kin, sacred protectors of thresholds and transitions. Thoth, the mind behind the mysteries, referred to them as guardians of the in-between, beings who could sense the unseen and intervene when humanity strayed too far from its essence. At the time, it may have sounded like poetic metaphor, but today, these guardians are revealing themselves in ways even the most skeptical observers can't explain away. It's not myth anymore. It's biology, it's frequency, and it's starting to show up everywhere. Dogs are showing heightened awareness beyond any training. They're detecting cancers before diagnoses. They're picking up on epileptic seizures before the human feels them. They're identifying emotional trauma without a single word being spoken. They're even navigating the energetic minefields of toxic environments, refusing to enter certain homes, reacting anxiously around specific people, or placing themselves between you and invisible threats. And no, this isn't superstition. Behaviorists and healers alike are now collaborating to document these patterns. Across continents, unconnected people are sharing the same strange experiences. Dogs responding to spiritual disturbance, shielding children from unseen dangers, waking people seconds before disaster strikes. What was once dismissed as coincidence is becoming a recognized pattern, a pattern Thoth foretold. He wrote of a time when the guardians would stir from slumber, their memories slowly returning as humanity teetered between collapse and evolution. These dogs, he said, would be drawn to humans not by chance, but by soul contract. Each human would be paired with a dog whose essence was meant to act as mirror and anchor. And more often than not, those pairings would come through rescue, adoption, or seemingly random encounters, not breeding, not pedigree, not purchase. Think about it. How many people say, "I didn't choose my dog, they chose me"? That's no accident. Thoth described the role of these guardians as multidimensional, part energetic healer, part emotional recalibrator, part psychic sentinel. They would read not just body language, but the subtle layers of a person's frequency, tuning into their emotional field like a living antenna. When something wasn't right, the dog would intervene, not with force, but with presence, sometimes by pressing their body against yours at exactly the right moment, sometimes by barking at what seems to be nothing, and sometimes just by locking eyes with you until you felt grounded again. If you've ever had your dog sit beside you during grief and feel, for just a second, like you were being held by something wiser than words, you've experienced this. These aren't trained responses. They're intuitive. They're encoded. Thoth believed dogs would serve as bridges, beings who walk between realms, bringing messages from the unseen into the felt. And in a world where our minds are bombarded by noise and distraction, these animals are helping us return to the language of energy, emotion, and instinct. They are recalibrating our nervous systems, matching our chaotic patterns with their grounded presence. They're teaching us how to feel again, deeply, without the filters. And as more people begin to awaken, dogs are responding in kind. Their behaviors are becoming more precise, more synchronized with their humans' emotional timelines. They're no longer just reacting, they're guiding. There are documented cases now of dogs disrupting thoughts, not actions, thoughts, before they spiral. Pulling someone out of bed before they collapse into depression. barking sharply during a panic attack before it fully takes hold. Sitting, silently and unshakably, beside someone who is considering ending their life. How do they know? How do they sense it? We still don't fully understand, but ancient wisdom tells us they were designed this way, sent this way. Modern scientists might dismiss it. Behaviorists might reduce it. But those who've experienced it, they know. Deep down, on a level you can't quantify, they know their dog is more than what textbooks say. They feel the soul behind the eyes, the knowing in the silence, the weight of a presence that speaks louder than any words ever could. And this awakening, it's not random, it's accelerating. Something is shifting on this planet, and these guardians have stepped forward, just as prophesied. They aren't here to be worshipped or idolized. They're here to remind us who we were before the world forgot. Before we forgot ourselves. If your dog seems to understand you better than any person ever has, it's not an illusion. It's the beginning of the remembering. You don't need to believe in prophecy to feel it. You just need to watch closely, because the signs are everywhere now, scattered like breadcrumbs across ordinary moments, fleeting, easy to miss, but unmistakable once seen. If you've ever noticed your dog reacting to something you couldn't see, nudging you when you felt off but hadn't said a word, or waking you seconds before something went wrong, you've already witnessed it. This is not a coincidence. It's not instinct in the conventional sense. It's a memory, ancient, sacred, and beginning to resurface. In Thoth's Hidden Scrolls, he described a time when the veil between realms would thin, when chaos would rise in the outer world and people would be cut off from their intuition. In that time, he said, guardians of the threshold would awaken, not as human prophets, but as sentient beings in animal form, specifically dogs. These guardians would not speak in language, but in energy. They would not teach with books, but with behavior. And they would not come from power, but from presence. We're seeing it now. Across the globe, dogs are exhibiting abilities that science can observe, but cannot fully explain. They're detecting cancer in humans before medical technology does. They're predicting seizures and cardiac events before any visible symptoms. These aren't isolated cases anymore, they're measurable patterns. In one documented study, a dog consistently identified melanoma in patients by sniffing moles with unerring accuracy. In another, a service dog alerted its owner to an oncoming diabetic crash 10 minutes before her monitor did, but it goes deeper than biology. What science is only beginning to explore is what mystics have known for millennia. Dogs are tuning into fields of information beyond what we see. They're picking up on thought forms, emotional imprints, even timelines before they unfold. And that's just the beginning. Owners are reporting dogs responding to thoughts, not actions. A woman thinks about taking her dog on a walk, and before she moves a muscle, the dog's already by the door. Another thinks of calling her dog in from the yard, and he's already trotting inside before she speaks. Some are sharing dreams with their animals, waking up to find their dog whimpering at the same moment they emerge from a nightmare. These events aren't scripted or expected. They feel spontaneous, raw, and yet strangely designed, like a deeper intelligence is at play, something both new and ancient at once. More startling still are the premonitions. Dogs behaving erratically moments before earthquakes, tornadoes, or other disasters, barking at seemingly nothing, only for the household to discover danger was moments away, refusing to go near certain people who later proved toxic or dangerous, guiding children away from danger with calculated, purposeful action. These are not acts of coincidence. They are echoes of a prophecy written long before the modern world emerged. And while modern science may struggle to explain them, esoteric traditions do not. They tell us dogs are attuned to vibrations we've long forgotten, frequencies that govern the flow of events before they happen. They're not just reacting, they're navigating. And through that navigation, they are guiding us too. This shift, this series of inexplicable canine behaviors, is not random. It is the early stage of what Thoth called the Great Alignment. He spoke of an era when Earth's frequency would rise, and beings aligned with that frequency would begin to awaken from their sleep. The guardians, he wrote, would begin to hum with light, not visually, but energetically, tuning into higher states of awareness and activating those around them. If you felt calmer, more grounded, or even subtly changed after sitting with your dog, you've already felt that frequency. Dogs aren't just sensing this planetary change, they're participating in it, acting as energetic anchors, helping us stay steady while everything around us becomes less predictable. They absorb our stress, stabilize our nervous systems, and return us to stillness when we've forgotten how. Some people call it therapy. Thoth called it alchemy. He believed dogs were living vessels of balance, sent here to help recalibrate the human heart as we cross through the turbulence of a collapsing age. And today, as chaos intensifies, the guardians are rising. What was once seen as a loving pet might just be something far more profound, a being sent not to follow us, but to walk beside us, not to obey, but to awaken. There's a moment, quiet, nearly invisible, when you think something, and your dog looks at you as if they've heard it. No words were spoken, no gestures made, but they knew. They always seemed to know. This silent knowing, this unseen bridge between your thought and their response, is not an accident. It's the beginning of something ancient reawakening, a telepathic bond that the ancients believed once connected all living beings. According to the esoteric texts attributed to Thoth, we are now entering the second phase of the canine awakening, the phase of direct mind-to-mind communication. The moment when dogs would begin to reflect back, not just our actions, but our unspoken thoughts. In countless homes, this is no longer theory, it's reality. Owners are reporting experiences they struggle to explain but feel too precise to deny. Thoughts, not commands, are prompting reactions. A person thinks about taking a specific route on a walk, and their dog tugs them in that direction. Another feels a wave of sadness rise in their chest, and before they can shed a tear, their dog is beside them, paw on their lap, eyes locked onto theirs with unnerving intensity. Some describe moments where they swear their dog knew what was about to happen before it did. A sudden shift in energy, a tone of voice they never used, a memory surfacing, and the dog responding before any of it could be externalized. This is not emotional coincidence, it's emotional alchemy. Thoth wrote of animals, especially dogs, as holders of the golden thread, beings who could transmute human emotion through energetic presence. Not just feel what you feel, but transform it. You cry, and their calm grounds you. You panic, and their stillness wraps around you like a balm. You spiral, and somehow they tether you. Their very being seems to absorb chaos and exhale clarity. It's not comfort, it's alchemy. Researchers are beginning to study what mystics have always claimed, that dogs can regulate the human nervous system simply through proximity. Heart rate variability improves, cortisol drops, oxytocin rises. But what science is only beginning to observe, Thoth detailed millennia ago. He spoke of a time when the emotional chaos of humanity would become so overwhelming that only pure beings, untouched by ego, agenda, or mental noise, would be able to recalibrate us. Dogs, he said, would become mirrors of the soul, reflecting back our emotional truth while simultaneously helping to harmonize it. And there's something else, a strange, beautiful evolution emerging. People are reporting shared dreams with their dogs, stories of owners waking up from vivid visions, only to find their dogs watching them, whining gently, or acting out elements from the dream itself. It's as if a deeper level of connection is forming, one that extends into the subconscious, perhaps even beyond. These aren't random fragments. They're communications across dimensions. And whether the world is ready to believe it or not, those who experience it can't deny it. Because this bond goes beyond language. It's not about teaching dogs tricks or training them to respond to our words. It's about unlearning the idea that we need language at all. Thoth believed that before speech, there was resonance, vibration, frequency, presence. In that original state, all life was connected through what he called the silent thread. The re-emergence of telepathy between humans and dogs is a return to that original design, a restoration of a lost communication that doesn't rely on voice, but on shared energetic fields, and it's happening faster than we expected. In recent years, people from all backgrounds, spiritualists, skeptics, scientists, are reporting this deepening connection. They're sensing it not just emotionally, but energetically. Moments of thought transmission, shared moods, unexplained awareness, and what's most astonishing is how natural it feels. It doesn't feel new, it feels familiar, as if it's not being discovered, but remembered. This is what Thoth described as the awakening of the internal current, the subtle stream of consciousness that flows beneath thought, beneath speech, linking all sentient beings. Dogs, with their unconditional presence and egoless state, are tuning into it first, and by simply living alongside them, we're being invited to tune in too. There's something sacred happening in the quiet spaces between our thoughts and their gaze. And if you've ever felt your dog understand you on a level no human ever could, it's because they're not just sensing you, they're communicating with you, not with bark or tail, but with frequency, with vibration, with soul. There's a reason your dog always knows where to sit. A reason they lay by the front door minutes before someone arrives, or curl beside you during moments when you can barely admit to yourself that something's wrong. It's not random. It's energetic precision. Because as Earth continues its rapid vibrational ascent, this global frequency shift that mystics and seers have spoken of for centuries, dogs are emerging not just as companions, but as healers. And not metaphorically, literally. In Thoth's ancient texts, he described dogs as transmuters of shadow, beings capable of absorbing spiritual residue, emotional toxins, and energetic debris. The phrase he used, "they drink darkness and breathe light," may sound poetic, but it's turning out to be astonishingly accurate. You may have noticed this without realizing it. On the days you're emotionally heavy or mentally exhausted, your dog seems more tired too. They sleep longer, retreat more, sometimes even fall ill. Then, as you recover, so do they. This mirroring isn't just empathy, it's energetic work. Our homes, our thoughts, even our bodies are constantly emitting frequencies. Some are coherent, love, gratitude, peace. Others are chaotic, fear, resentment, shame. These frequencies hang in our spaces, sink into our walls, attach to our emotional fields. Dogs feel them. More than that, they process them. Ancient wisdom suggests dogs act like energetic filters, moving through your environment and balancing the charge. Their movement isn't random, it's cleansing. That place by the window they always sit, that's not a sunspot, it's an energy node. That random barking at the empty hallway at 3 a.m., it may not be empty at all. Dogs are sensing subtle energetic fluctuations that human senses no longer detect, and in many cases, they are intervening. Thoth predicted that during the Earth's ascension phase, what we now experience as rising collective anxiety, environmental chaos, and technological burnout, certain animals would act as stabilizers, keeping human beings from veering too far into dissonance. Dogs would be the front line of that support. The ancient priests of Chem, precursors to the Egyptian mystery schools, were known to keep dogs in initiation temples, not as pets, but as energetic sentinels. They believed dogs could absorb the emotional purging of those undergoing deep transformation, anchoring them in love when their inner worlds fell into disarray. What we call therapy dogs today is a pale reflection of this original understanding. It's not about comfort, it's about transformation. A dog doesn't just make you feel better, it helps bring you back to energetic coherence. It attunes you to yourself. You may think it's your dog who needs the walk, but often it's you who needs to reconnect to the earth. Your dog is simply leading you there. They pull you from the overstimulation of screens and synthetic spaces and guide you step by step back into resonance with nature. This shift isn't just emotional, it's planetary. Earth itself is undergoing a vibrational upgrade. Scientists are documenting strange shifts in the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency, and many researchers now speak of the physiological impact this has on humans. Sleep disruptions, mood swings, heightened intuition. But Thoth warned that most of humanity would be unequipped to handle this surge unless grounded by living conductors of divine memory. Dogs, he wrote, carry the codes in their DNA, not because they were engineered, but because they never forgot who they were. Where humans fell into amnesia, seduced by ego, dulled by distraction, dogs remained present, connected to the frequency of source. Their role in this time isn't a new task, but an old agreement being fulfilled. They are absorbing stress, diffusing anxiety, even detecting illness before any symptoms emerge. They are recalibrating you with every lean, every sigh, every quiet moment of eye contact, not by accident, but by design. And just as healers burn out, so do dogs. Many energy-sensitive dogs are showing signs of fatigue, overstimulation, even depression, not because they are broken, but because they are carrying more than they should. The question isn't whether your dog is helping you, it's whether you're noticing the toll. Are you reciprocating the healing? Are you creating space for them to rest, to recharge, to receive as much as they give? Because they're not machines. They're conscious, sentient beings stepping into a sacred role, often without recognition, and almost always without thanks. What Thoth foresaw wasn't mythology, it was a roadmap. And as we move deeper into the great vibrational transition, dogs aren't adapting, they're activating. Their presence is not passive. They are tuning forks for divine harmony. Their body is the antenna. Their love is the frequency. So next time your dog chooses to sit by your feet instead of their bed, or stares out the window for minutes without moving, or lets out a deep sigh when you walk in the door, don't dismiss it as random. You're watching ancient energy work unfold in real time. You're witnessing a healer in action. And maybe, just maybe, they've been doing more for your soul than anyone ever could. You didn't choose your dog by accident, and they didn't choose you by chance. What if behind the wagging tail, the playful bark, and the loyal eyes, there's something ancient watching, something wise? Because deep within the forgotten corners of esoteric Egyptian knowledge lies a prophecy even more profound than the ones about energy or telepathy. Thoth wrote not just of dogs as energetic helpers, but of dogs as incarnated souls, spirits who chose fur instead of flesh, 4 legs instead of 2, in order to guide humanity during its most fragile metamorphosis. This idea sounds wild at first, until you live it. Until your dog finds you, not the other way around. Until the moment you look at them and feel an intelligence that doesn't match anything you've read about animal behavior. Until they seem to know your thoughts, mirror your wounds, or heal you in ways no human has ever managed. Then, the ancient writings don't feel so mythical anymore. They feel like memory. Thoth described these beings as luminaries who veil themselves in humble form, spirits who once walked in higher realms but volunteered to descend into the physical world, not to dominate, but to serve, not to be worshipped, but to walk quietly beside those who would forget their way. These incarnated guides wouldn't arrive with grand entrances or divine recognition. They would arrive when needed most, often found in shelters, strays, rescues, dogs with pasts, dogs discarded by the system, dogs who carry a silent weight behind their eyes, because they weren't here for comfort. They were here for you. You may have felt this already. That strange sense of destiny when you locked eyes with them at the shelter. The feeling that they found you long before you knew to look. The timing, uncanny. The bond, immediate. These aren't coincidences. These are soul contracts, reawakened. And once you understand that, the way you look at your dog changes forever. You stop seeing an animal. You start seeing a companion from another time. One who may have walked with you in a past life. One who waited patiently across lifetimes for the moment they could return, not in human form, but in the one shape you'd still be open enough to trust. This belief isn't confined to Egyptian lore. Across cultures, From the Tibetan Book of the Dead to certain Native American traditions, there are references to animal spirits choosing to incarnate for a specific mission. Dogs are especially mentioned as psychopomps, beings who help souls transition between worlds. In ancient Greece, Cerberus guarded the underworld. In Aztec myth, Xolotl, the canine god, guided souls through the afterlife. Always the guide, always the protector, always the silent witness between here and the beyond. And isn't that what they do? Your dog knows when you're on the brink of depression, of a breakdown, of a breakthrough. They appear beside you at those exact moments, saying nothing yet speaking volumes. They absorb your grief without judgment. They sit through your silence without discomfort. They stay, even when you try to push the world away. That isn't learned behavior. That's soul recognition. These dogs, these guides, often exhibit unusual behavior. They may be deeply intuitive, forming connections instantly with certain people while avoiding others completely. They may dream vividly, twitching and moving as if living an entirely separate life while asleep. Some seem to arrive with fully formed personalities, almost as if they already know who they are and what they're here to do. You might even catch them reacting to things you can't see, entities, shifts, presences. Not startled, not fearful, aware. Thoth believed these souls chose canine form because of its ability to bypass human defenses. In a dog's presence, the ego lowers, the heart opens. We allow ourselves to love and be loved without the layers of pretense and fear that block us in human relationships. Dogs become a mirror to our truest self, reflecting the parts of us we've buried, abandoned, or forgotten. And in doing so, they help awaken what has long been dormant. It's no wonder then that so many people report feeling like they've lost a part of themselves when their dog passes. Because in many cases, they've lost a guide, a silent teacher, a soul who came not to stay forever, but to shift something in you permanently. Their mission may be complete, but their energy never really leaves. You feel them in the wind, in dreams, in the quiet, in the spaces they once filled and the parts of you they helped heal. Not every dog is an incarnated guide, but you'll know when yours is. You won't need proof. You'll feel it. In the timing, in the bond, in the way they show up when no one else does. And once you recognize that truth, you can't unsee it. You begin to listen differently, to honor more deeply, to ask not just what your dog needs from you, but what message they came to deliver. Because sometimes the greatest wisdom doesn't come from a book, a guru, or a vision. Sometimes it comes in the form of a wagging tail, a watchful eye, and a presence that seems to know far more than it should. The world didn't start unraveling by accident. Pandemics, climate upheaval, digital addiction, societal division, these aren't just symptoms of chaos. They are triggers, markers, catalysts for something much larger. In the ancient prophecy of Thoth, these global crises were predicted not just as inevitable challenges, but as alarms. Cosmic signals that would mark the beginning of an awakening, a vibrational tipping point where humanity would either ascend or fall further into unconsciousness. And in that exact moment, when the balance teeters, a hidden force would rise to assist. A force clothed in fur and silence, waiting, watching, ready. Dogs. This wasn't metaphoric. It wasn't allegory. According to the writings encoded in the Hermetica and passed through occult traditions for centuries, dogs were the beings Thoth said would activate when the world reached a certain vibrational fever pitch. Not politicians, not gurus, not algorithms. Dogs. Why? Because when everything else collapses, when systems crumble and truth becomes unrecognizable, dogs still reach people in the one place that hasn't been fully programmed: the heart. Look at what's happening. In a time when human trust is at an all-time low, people still trust their dogs without question. In a world where connection is reduced to screens, people still speak to their dogs as if they understand, and increasingly, it seems they do. More people are adopting dogs than ever before, not out of necessity, but because something inside them feels drawn. and while they may not know why, the timing is no coincidence. According to the prophecy, this surge in human-canine connection was to coincide with Earth's vibrational upheaval, a moment Thoth called the Great Return, when ancient wisdom re-emerges through unexpected vessels. These dogs, especially rescues, strays, and the ones that find their way into homes during periods of personal or collective crisis, are the front line. They are arriving exactly when they are needed most. Their mere presence seems to bring emotional recalibration, as if they are anchoring something unseen. In homes filled with stress, they become grounding. In lives filled with noise, they bring stillness. They seem to detect illness before symptoms arise, to sense changes in the earth, to react before earthquakes, storms, or even emotional breakdowns. And when chaos surges, they remain centered. It's easy to dismiss this as coincidence, but the patterns are global. Stories are pouring in from every continent. Dogs alerting owners before seizures, guiding lost children to safety, barking moments before structural collapses, refusing to leave their human side during episodes of trauma, depression, or spiritual disorientation. These are not mere acts of loyalty. These are missions. Thoth spoke of this phase as the unveiling of the guardians. He described that during times of planetary disorder, when the veil between dimensions begins to thin, certain beings, dogs among them, would awaken from their slumber. They wouldn't announce themselves. They wouldn't need to. Their actions would speak louder than any words ever could, and those who were ready would feel it instantly. A shift, a knowing, a sudden realization that the bond they share with their dog is not only profound, it's preordained. Science, of course, doesn't know what to do with this. Behaviorists can't explain why some dogs detect cancer while medical scans miss it. Neuroscientists can't explain how dogs anticipate panic attacks minutes before they happen. And psychologists are only beginning to acknowledge what many pet owners have known intuitively for decades. Dogs are not reacting to our behavior. They are reading our energy. The more Earth spins into turbulence, the more visible their role becomes. The prophecy said that during this period of planetary triggers, dogs would act as energetic stabilizers. They wouldn't just comfort us, they would shield us, absorb trauma, deflect psychic interference, tune us, like instruments, back into frequencies we've long forgotten. This isn't magic. It's metaphysical architecture. It's the blueprint Thoth left behind, now unfolding in real time. And there's a reason it had to be dogs. Unlike humans, dogs don't overthink. They don't judge. They don't distort signals with ego or agenda. They operate purely from the heart. Their loyalty is not blind, it's intuitive. Their presence is not passive, it's deeply intentional. As Earth's chaos increases, they are being activated not just by instinct, but by something more ancient, something etched into their very essence. You've seen it, haven't you? The way your dog reacts to something in the room you can't see, how they position themselves between you and certain people, how they find you when your energy dips, no matter how quietly you hide it. These aren't tricks, they're assignments, fulfilled by beings who may not speak our language, but understand our soul. So when the news overwhelms you, when the world feels like it's unraveling too fast to catch your breath, look down, at the quiet companion sitting beside you, at the one who seems to always know. Because they were sent for this moment, not just to keep you company, but to remind you, even in the storm, you are not alone. Even in the collapse, something ancient is rising. It always starts the same way. A subtle nudge, a strange coincidence, a sense that your dog understands something you don't, even something you've forgotten. And then, if you're paying attention, the veil starts to lift. What felt like an ordinary bond reveals something deeper, an intelligence that doesn't need language, a knowing that can't be taught. This is the return of the teachings, not through priests, not through institutions, but through the quiet companionship of the most unassuming guides. Thoth, the architect of sacred knowledge, never intended his wisdom to remain sealed forever. His prophecies were planted like seeds, waiting for fertile ground, waiting for the right age. Not the age of kings or pyramids, but the age of collapse. the Age of Awakening. He wrote of a time when humanity would grow deaf to the words of sages, blind to the symbols of the divine, and yet hungry for truth in a way it had never been before. In that time, he said, the wisdom would return, but it would come in a form no one expected. Not carved into stone, but walked beside us, on four legs. The modern world has trained us to dismiss intuition, to scoff at the spiritual, to laugh off the mystical. But now, science itself is catching up. Quantum biology is beginning to validate what mystics have known for millennia, that consciousness isn't confined to the brain, and perception isn't limited to the five senses. Experiments in animal cognition are showing behaviors that challenge every assumption we've made about intelligence. And consciousness researchers are starting to entertain possibilities once labeled pseudoscience. Shared awareness, entanglement between beings, even interspecies empathy. All of it pointing to the same hidden truth. The old teachings were never wrong. We just stopped listening. Dogs are surfacing as conduits in this shift, embodying teachings once reserved for initiates. You may think that's romanticism, until you experience it, until your dog senses your illness before you know it, until they act as if they've lived this life with you before, until they look at you, and something inside you feels remembered. This is the return of the Hermetic teachings, not just as theory but as embodiment, the alchemy of energy through companionship, the transmission of wisdom through love. Think about it. Isn't it strange how dogs are so often described as therapeutic, healers, or empaths? Yet we don't truly ask what that means. We call it instinct, but instinct is only the name we give to intelligence we can't explain. Dogs feel your trauma before you speak it. They anchor your energy when your thoughts spiral. They guide your children, protect your space, and sometimes they die before you, not by fate, but choice, as if their time with you was a contract fulfilled, a mission complete. And now, all of this is accelerating. The behaviors once considered rare are becoming widespread. Thousands of stories, shared across forums, social media, and research groups, tell the same story. Dogs knowing, dogs healing, dogs choosing the exact moment to enter or exit a person's life. It's not imagination. It's not coincidence. It's the transmission of the sacred in a form we were finally willing to let close. This is why Thoth embedded the prophecy so deeply, not in temples but in time. Because the teachings were never meant to be locked in books or spoken only by elites. They were meant to live through the relationships we form, the bonds we honor, the presence we allow. Dogs are not the message, they are the messengers. But the message itself is ancient. You are not alone. You were never meant to walk this path without guidance. And that guidance has returned, not to be worshipped, but to walk beside you. The symbols of Thoth, the ibis, the scroll, the staff, these weren't just artifacts. They were codes, keys to activate awareness, to remind humanity that the divine could take any form, even one with wagging tails and muddy paws, because when truth is hidden in plain sight, it bypasses resistance. It enters through the heart, and no being does that better than a dog. As the veil continues to thin, you may start to feel the shift more clearly, not just in global events, but in your home. In the quiet moments, when your dog seems to know exactly what you need. In the stillness between thoughts, when you sense their presence not just beside you, but within you, echoing back parts of yourself you've long forgotten. This isn't fantasy. It's memory. Cellular memory. Soul memory. The ancient teachings are not returning in temples or textbooks. They're returning in living, breathing beings. In fur-covered friends who don't need words to teach. Who remind us that love is the highest wisdom, that presence is power, and that even in the darkest moments, the light walks with us, sometimes on two legs, sometimes on four. By now, maybe you're starting to feel it. Not just the awe, not just the curiosity, but the shift. That something deep inside you is stirring, remembering, recognizing. It's no longer just about dogs or Thoth or prophecy. It's about you. It's about the part of you that always knew the world was more than it appeared. the part that sensed a hidden order behind the chaos, a deeper intelligence behind the veil of everyday life. You've seen the signs. You've lived the synchronicities. And now the question is simple. What will you do with what you've remembered? Because make no mistake, this was always meant to find you. Not as entertainment, not as mythology, but as a mirror. The teachings that once guided initiates through sacred halls are now being passed to ordinary people through extraordinary bonds. Your dog may not be here to simply keep you company. They might be here to keep you awake. This moment in history, the upheaval, the confusion, the loneliness, was foretold. Thoth described it as the hour of choice, when humanity would stand on the threshold between illusion and truth. A time when the old systems would crumble and a new kind of wisdom would re-emerge, not from governments, not from gurus, but from the natural world, from energy, from presence, from beings who never forgot what we've spent lifetimes trying to remember. Your dog doesn't argue, doesn't preach, doesn't pretend to be something they're not. They simply are. Fully, completely, undeniably themselves. And in that, they teach us the highest lesson of all, to return, to presence, to trust, to truth. The prophecy isn't asking you to believe anything. It's asking you to feel, to pay attention to what your intuition already knows, to stop searching outside and start listening inside. And when you do, everything changes. You begin to see how your dog mirrors your emotions, how they react not to what you say, but what you feel. You start noticing the moments where your dog calms your anxiety without effort, how they sit by your side when you're emotionally fractured as if absorbing your weight. That's not accident, that's alignment. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The time of passive living is over. The world doesn't need more obedience. It needs awakened hearts. And in this revolution, your dog isn't a bystander. They're an ally, a guide, a spark in the dark. Because this awakening isn't about escape, it's about return, and your return has already begun. So what now? You don't need a ritual. You don't need a ceremony. You just need awareness. Slow down. Look into your dog's eyes. Really look. Ask yourself, what am I feeling when they look back? What's being exchanged without words? Then ask, what am I ignoring? What am I pretending not to know? Because the truth is, you've always known. You've just been conditioned to forget. But now, the forgetting is ending. Your dog isn't here to complete you. They're here to remind you that you were never broken in the first place. That presence is enough. That love is real. That truth doesn't need to be taught when it can be remembered. The prophecy was never about dogs. It was about us, our return to ourselves, guided by those who never left their post. And here's what they don't want you to realize. The awakening doesn't come through algorithms or news feeds. It doesn't come from institutions or influencers. It comes from the stillness, from the spaces in between, from the beings we overlook. That's why it's so powerful, and why it's been hidden in plain sight all along. Right now, there are thousands, millions of people waking up through the eyes of their animals. Quiet revolutions happening in living rooms, on walks, in silent moments of connection. People who are remembering what it means to feel without defense, to listen without noise, to exist without pretending. That is what your dog teaches you every day. And that's exactly why the system wants you distracted, wants you cynical, wants you too tired, too overstimulated, too numb to notice what's unfolding right in front of you. But you're not numb anymore. You're here, and that means it's already begun. If this message has stirred something in you, don't ignore it. That stirring is your compass. Follow it, nurture it, let it grow. The real world, the awakened one, is built through moments just like this. And if you've made it this far, you're not watching by accident. You're one of the ones who can feel the shift and recognize its importance. But this is only the beginning. Inside our free Insights Academy newsletter, we go deeper into the teachings too powerful and too suppressed to speak openly about here. Sign up with the link in the description and get instant access to sacred transmissions, plus a free digital copy of the Kybalion for a limited time. You won't want to miss what's coming next. This is your moment. Remember it. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."